All right, good morning. Good to see everybody this morning. As we get ready to start a new book for our Sunday morning class, we're going to be looking at the book of Joshua. It's one that, with parts I'm certain we're very, very familiar, but it's going to have several things for us to look at, and we're just going to kind of do some introductory material to start with before we get into the first couple of chapters. Like we did with Deuteronomy, like we've done with Numbers in the past, we're going to cover this in rather large sections. So like this morning, we're going to try to take a look at the first two chapters, along with the introduction, and then we're going to break it out from there so that we're kind of move through it relatively quickly. There's not much doubt that the book of Joshua has a pretty close connection to the first five books, or especially to the Torah, to the teachings. Just number one, because of its position, and the second is because of its time. I mean, it's right after the death of Moses, right after all of this has been told to Israel again as they get ready to enter the land. It's categorized in two different ways, okay? Probably the one that we're most familiar with is that when we start thinking about the books of the Bible and the categories that we place them in, that this would be, from our perspective, this would be one of the historical books, okay? We kind of divide the Old Testament in that way, right? Of the first five with the Pentateuch, and then historical books, Psalms, the poetry kind of literature, poem and wisdom literature, and then prophets. The Jewish Bible is not divided like that. Joshua belongs to a category called the prophets, the former prophets. That Joshua, Judges, Samuel, Kings are all part of the prophets in the Jewish Bible. And Samuel and Kings are also one book each. They don't divide those up. So that's in this section. We're going to kind of cover it in that way, right? As some of it being prophetic literature, some of it being historical, but really there's some major themes that go through Joshua as we look at it and think of it in terms of what it looks like as far as prophecy, or again, the three things that we look for whenever we come to Scripture. What does this tell us about God, right? What does it tell us about us, and what do we do because of it, right? Those are kind of the big things we're going to look at as we look at the book of Joshua. There are some things that we need to kind of know as we get into the book to begin with, and that is that this is written as an event that takes place in a pretty short time, when in fact the conquest of Canaan is going to take a while, right? It's going to be set in different stages, but this really tells the story of them coming into the land and settling it, and it divides up pretty well along those lines. I think it's the first 12 chapters are going to deal with taking the land. I believe the next 7 or 8 chapters are going to deal with dividing it up and how they're going to settle it, and then we have Joshua's final address toward the end of the book. As far as author and time written, both of these are unknown. Okay, I mean, we call it Joshua, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's Joshua who does the writing. It could be that it's Joshua as the main character of the book. As far as time when it's written, there are some things in there that we can take to go, this is eyewitness account, right? These are things that they're witnessing in front of them. When it's finally in its written form, maybe down the line a ways, because a lot of this information is going to be transmitted orally for quite a while. They're going to tell the stories before they're written down and preserved. Okay, so just that kind of thing of going, well, when was it written and who did it? It's really unknown to us for sure who wrote it. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't have some good stuff in there. It doesn't mean that we should just throw it out because we don't know. There are some kind of big themes that we're going to see as we go through. One is, again, what's God up to is God is delivering on his promise. God gives them the land of Canaan that he promised to give to Abraham centuries before. And this is God working and that promise coming to fulfillment. We're going to see God as the warrior. That is, when God is with his people, that as he leads them out, they're going to be successful. We're going to see what it means to be the people of God in a different situation, different than what they've seen before. And they're going to have to apply what Moses has told them, apply the covenant law in a new place and with new surroundings. We talked about this as we went through Deuteronomy, that Deuteronomy is a forward-looking book, right? Of when you come into the land of Canaan, this is what you need to do. And this is what you're going to encounter, and this is how you do that. It's one thing for them to stand at the border and hear these things. It's quite another when they get into the land and they have to start figuring out, how does this look now? Because this is going to be new and it's going to be different. And so there are some things that we're going to learn as we make our way through. There's some really interesting things that we find in the book itself. And so I just want to start by taking a look at chapter 1. Okay? And again, very familiar stuff. Most of us have heard this over and over, but let's take a look at it. After the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord said to Joshua, the son of Nun, Moses' assistant, "Moses, my servant, is dead. Now, therefore, arise, go over this Jordan, you and all this people, into the land that I am giving to them, to the people of Israel. Every place that the sole of your foot will tread upon, as I have given you, just as I promised to Moses, from the wilderness and this Lebanon, as far as the great river, the river Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites to the great sea, to the going down of the sun, will be your territory. No man will be able to stand before you all the days of your life. Just as I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will not leave you or forsake you. Be strong and courageous, for you shall cause this people to inherit the land that I swore to their fathers to give them. Only be strong and very courageous, being careful to do according to all the law that Moses my servant commanded you. Do not turn from it to the right hand or to the left, that you may have good success wherever you go. The book of this law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, that you may be careful to do according to all that is written in it. For then you will make your way prosperous, and then you will have good success. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened and do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." Okay. Those first two verses have always been verses that have stood out to me of going, why? Right? The first thing that God tells Joshua is Moses is dead. He already knows this, right? This is not new. As a matter of fact, from the book of Numbers all the way through the book of Deuteronomy, this is predicted over and over and over about what's going to happen to Moses. Moses is going to go up on the mountain, and Moses is going to die, and Joshua is going to take control. Joshua is going to lead them in. One of the things that I hadn't thought about much is the importance of this and this being talked about, and we've mentioned it a little bit in Deuteronomy, but I want to mention it a little bit more now. I wonder some, as Israel is following Moses, if they see Moses as the ruler, right? I think that's possible, that they see Moses as the one. Right? It's been shown to them over and over that Moses is the leader. When somebody else has tried to step up and assume leadership, God has taken care of that, right? Whether it's striking Miriam with leprosy, whether it's the ground opening up and swallowing people. I mean, God's made it clear that Moses is the guy. Yet it's not Moses's children that are going to assume leadership behind him. This is not like the kingdoms that they know around them. where it's the king's son that's going to now take control. It's going to be someone else. Someone that's not related to Moses is going to lead. We've seen little glimpses of this throughout Israelites' history of their idea of, okay, somebody else needs to be in charge. I still think that's one of the reasons why we find the commission of Joshua over and over, why we find two of them in Deuteronomy in the same chapter, where God speaks to Moses and says Joshua's going to be the guy. God speaks to Israel and says Joshua's going to be the guy. And God tells Moses to bring Joshua to the tent of meeting, where God's presence shows up and says Joshua's the guy. Okay? Because in times of an absence of leadership, right, when it's up in the air, this is a dangerous time. Right? It's a dangerous time for the people. Right? One group trying to assert authority, or maybe even an outside group trying to take advantage if there doesn't appear to be a leader. Now, I don't know, but it seems like we see a little bit of that right here, right now, in the good old USA. Right? I don't think so much now at this point, but earlier in November, we saw a lot of that. Right? Of, whoa, no, hold on. No, this is the guy. No, this is the guy. And we've got different groups jockeying for position to try to go, no, this is it. And it kind of can be a kind of a dangerous and turbulent time. And people want security and people want to know. Right? So that's kind of what we see here. Moses is dead. Moses, my servant, has died. You're going to lead him in. The second thing is that I just kind of want us to kind of have in our head for just a minute is I know that Joshua has been the assistant to Moses for years, right? Joshua is Moses' assistant as he goes up and down Sinai back in Exodus. So for at least 40 years, he's been Moses' assistant. And he has got to witness a lot of things. He's got to see what God's done with those who have tried to step in where they didn't belong. He's got to see all kinds of things and what it means, what it looks like for people to be disobedient and to rebel against God and to have to wander in the wilderness for 40 years. He's seen all of these things, but the other thing that he has seen is the way that Moses is revered. Okay? Not always. There are some exceptions, but for the most part, Moses is the guy. Even on into the time of the first century Christians, Moses is the guy, right? For the Jewish people, he's the one. And I just kind of want to keep that in our mind as Joshua gets ready to step into the shoes of Moses, and what that must be like for him, right? I know what they thought of this guy. And it's got to be a little nerve-wracking, doesn't it? Right? To go, okay, what if I mess this up? Then everybody who said he shouldn't have been there to start with, right, is going to go, see, told you. We need to take over. So this is kind of a big thing, and this is going to be a completely new time and a completely new place. But God keeps this promise in front of him. I'm giving the land just as I promised, not to Moses, but to Abraham. Right? This goes back way further than Moses. I'm going to keep this promise, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to be with you, just like I was with Moses. I'm going to be with you. Right? So then the territory is described for them. Here's where it's going to be. It's going to be across the Jordan to the Great Sea, which is the Mediterranean. He speaks of going all the way to the Euphrates. I don't know that they ever quite make it that far, but the land of the Hittites and all of this is how the territory is all going to go, right? This is all yours. Every place that you're going to go, because God's going to give it to you. But then we find the key to success. The key to success is going to be the same key that we find throughout Scripture is, are you going to be faithful to the covenant or not? Right? That's the measure. That's the measure of success. You do not let this law, don't let it depart from your mouth. You don't turn from it to the right or to the left. But if you're obedient and you're careful to do that, all that I have commanded you, you will be successful. You will be prosperous, and the land is yours. It's that simple. Right? It's that simple and it's that difficult all at the same time. This is what you have to do. All of it's there. All the promises, all the blessings, everything's there. All you have to do is follow. But Israel has a real problem with following. And so do I. Right? And so do most of us. Is there anybody here? Huh? I don't want to show hands because I just don't. But is there anybody here that says that what we've been, that could say what we've been promised from God is just a big lie? Right? Or that we haven't been given any promises from God. We've been given all kinds of them. Peter calls them great and precious promises that we've been given. And what God wants is for us to follow. Right? And it's that simple and it's that difficult at the same time. To be my people. To look at what I've told you and to walk in that way. Walk that direction. No, you're not going to get it right all the time, but walk that direction. Right? Move in that way. But still, I go, no, I don't want to go there. I want to go this way. Right? When all the promises are in front of us, they go, no, I don't want to go that way. I think it's, I think the name of the book is 10-Minute Transformation, but it's written by Chris Altrock, and he tells the story of going to Disneyland. And as they enter, there's this little spot in there, kind of a gift shop and arcade and stuff like that. And there's a little boy in there with his parents, and he's playing some game, or he's looking at the toys, or he's doing something within that gift shop. And they're telling him, come on, let's go out into the park. Let's go out into the park. Let's go out into the park. And he doesn't want to go. Right on the other side of the glass are all the characters that he's playing with right here. Right? And all kinds of things. But he doesn't want to go through that because he's happy right here where he's at. And sometimes we just need to let go of the stuff where we're right here and to go, let's follow a little bit further and all the promises that God's made. Okay? But he's going to tell them the keys to success are right here. All right, let's go into chapter 1, verses 10 and 11. Joshua commanded the officers of the people, pass through the midst of the camp, command the people, prepare your provisions, for within 3 days you're to pass over this Jordan to go in to take possession of the land that the Lord your God is giving you to possess. And to the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, Joshua said, remember the word that Moses, the servant of the Lord, commanded you, saying, the Lord your God is providing you a place of rest and will give you this land. Your wives, your little one, your livestock shall remain in the land that Moses gave you beyond the Jordan, but all the men of valor among you shall pass over armed before your brothers and shall help them until the Lord gives rest to your brothers as he has to you, and they also take possession of the land that the Lord your God is giving them. Then you will return to the land of your possession and shall possess it, the land that Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave you beyond the Jordan toward the sunrise. They answered Joshua and said, all that you have commanded us we will do, and wherever you send us we will go. Just as we obeyed Moses in all things, so will we obey you. Only may the Lord your God be with you as he was with Moses. Whoever rebels against your commandment and disobeys your words, whatever you command, shall be put to death. Only be strong and courageous. All right. So, in 3 days, we're going to cross the Jordan. Get ready. There's an echo here. It goes all the way back to Sinai. And God shows up at Sinai, and he tells Moses, tell the Israelites to prepare yourself because in 3 days I'm coming to meet with you. Right? You need to get ready. You need to get ready, get ready to go. And so we see that here again in these 3 days. Then we have the address to the Reubenites, the Gadites, and half-tribe Manasseh. Now, if we've followed along, this has been way back. This has been back in Numbers chapter 32. These 2.5 tribes are on the east side of the Jordan. They've found a place. Right? This is where they want to be. There's plenty of room for their flocks. There's plenty of room for everything. This is a good spot for them. They would like this. And so they asked Moses, can we just stay here? Right? Again, the promise is right across the Jordan, but can we just stay here? And Moses goes and speaks to God, and God says, yes, stay. That's fine. You can stay on the east side of the Jordan, but that doesn't relieve you of your responsibilities. You're going to go in, your armed men are still going to go with the rest of Israel. You're going to go in and help your brothers conquer the land, then you can come back. This little section right here starts, through these first 5 chapters, which we're not going to cover near that today, but these first 5 chapters, it's almost a reversal, or almost a mirror image, I guess, of Moses and the Israelites. Okay? We're going to see it, some of it carry in chapter 2, but we have Moses addressing the Reubenites, the Gadites, half-tribe of Manasseh, toward the end as they're making their way. And here, it's at the front, right? We got Joshua addressing them. In chapter 2, we're going to have Joshua sending in spies, which right before that in Numbers, Moses sends in spies. Right? And so we're going to see this kind of move backwards a little bit. We're going to go, whenever we come to the crossing of the Jordan and the crossing of the Red Sea, how those set together. And then Joshua encountering the angel of the Lord. I think it's in Joshua 5. And Moses encountering the angel of the Lord in Exodus 3. And it's almost set up as a mirror image of these are the same things happening, right? But just in a different order now, right? So it's just kind of interesting the way that they get put together. The Transjordan tribes echo the sentiment of Israel in several different places of saying, whatever you say, we're going to do. Now, they say this a lot, right? Whatever you said, we're going to do it. It doesn't always turn out that way for them, but in this case, I believe that they hold to it. Again, that's one of those things, even for us, it's much easier said than actually lived out, right? Going, whatever you say, God, I'm going to do it. And then something happens and going, but I don't think you meant that, did you? I mean, okay, well, now this time, whatever you say, I'm going to do. Oh, you didn't tell me I had to love those people, right? So that kind of thing. But anyway, we're going to keep moving. Let's keep moving into chapter 2 as we start the conquest. Joshua the son of Nun sent 2 men secretly from Shittim as spies, saying, go view the land, especially Jericho. He came into the house of a prostitute whose name was Rahab and lodged there. And it was told to the king of Jericho, behold, men of Israel have come here tonight to search out the land. The king of Jericho sent to Rahab, saying, bring out the men who have come to you, who entered your house, for they have come to search out all the land. But the woman had taken the 2 men and hidden them. And she said, true, the men came to me, but I did not know where they were from. And when the gate was about to be closed at dark, the men went out. I do not know where the men went. Pursue them quickly, and you will overtake them. But she had brought them up to the roof and hid them with the stalks of flax that she had laid in order on the roof. So the men pursued after them on the way to the Jordan as far as the fjords, and the gate was shut as soon as the pursuers had gone out. They're the spies again. We're going to send spies in to check things out to see what it is we're up against. I find it interesting that Joshua only chooses 2, right? This doesn't seem to be a command like it was in, from God, the way that Moses was, of select somebody from each tribe and send them. But Joshua says, I'm going to send 2 in. I just wonder, 2 is all it took to say, yes, we could have taken it the first time and wouldn't have had to spend 40 years in the wilderness. Is why Joshua only sends 2. Or if he has a feeling about these guys and go, all right, these guys know what's going on, and we'll send them. It's not really much said about them other than what they do when they get there. Obviously, Jericho seems to be nervous that the Israelites are coming. We haven't got quite there yet. Let's go ahead and read it. Before the men lay down, Rahab came up to them on the roof and said to the men, I know that the Lord has given you the land, and that the fear of you has fallen upon us, and that all the inhabitants of the land melt away before you. For we have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea before you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to the 2 kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan, to Sihon and Og, whom you devoted to destruction. As soon as we heard it, our hearts melted, and there was no spirit left in any man because of you, for the Lord your God, he is God, in the heavens above and on the earth beneath. Now, please swear to me by the Lord that as I have dealt kindly with you, you will also deal kindly with my father's house, and give me a sure sign, that you will save alive my father and my mother, my brothers and sisters, and all who belong to them, and deliver our lives from death. And the men said to her, our life for yours, even to death, if you do not tell this business of ours. Then when the Lord gives us the land, we will deal kindly and faithfully with you. Okay. The king of Jericho is nervous, but it doesn't sound like he's the only one, right? What Rahab is going to tell the spies is that we know what's happening. This has been a long time. So imagine, and maybe this is not fair, so just, don't judge me too much, but just imagine that after 40 years of the Red Sea drying up, you wonder if the story's grown. I mean, to be fair, right? We go back and we can read and we know what happened at the Red Sea, and that's fine. But I wonder in Jericho, as this is being talked about, it's been talked about over and over, and the story's being told, if there's not things added, right? That this hasn't gotten bigger. Maybe there was a dragon or two. I don't know by the time they were done. But, that this is getting bigger. But however this is of going, maybe it even started out as going, there's this group of people, and this is what happened, and this is how they defeated the Egyptians, and then God dried up the sea, and they crossed, and then the Egyptians were drowned. And maybe, even for a long time, this may have been thought just to be a story. Nice little bedtime story, if drowning people is your thing. But now that Israel's right on the border, now we go, wait a minute, maybe that is the thing that happened. Maybe there is something to this. And now we're starting to worry. Right? The city of Jericho is a pretty big city, and it's pretty powerful, but the entire nation of Egypt is gone. Due to the plagues and then all of Pharaoh's army. What's going to happen to us? So there is this idea that, hey, there's something here and we need to find out. When the king hears about it, he wants to find out who these guys are. I don't know if this strikes anybody else the way that it does me, but when I read Rahab's response or her request, there's somebody missing until the very end. We want you to deal kindly with us when you come in. And what she asked for is her father's house, her sisters, her brothers, and all that belong to them. And Rahab, her name's not at the top of the list. Now, at the end, we spare our lives. I think she's in there, and I think she probably, believes that she's going to be in there. But it seems to me, just by reading this, that she seems to be the type of person that's looking out for the people around her rather than just Rahab. They're going, get me out of here. I don't care what happens to them. Right? But you care of all of my father's house, my brothers, my sisters, all of those things, and spare our lives. But she's not one that's named. Rahab is one of those people that really interests me. We see her care for her family. We see a faith in God exhibited by going out on a limb and hiding these two guys to start with. But then just to tell them, this is why I'm doing it, because I think God's got, the God of heaven is with you, and there's no defeating him. And as we go on through and you go turn all the way over to Matthew chapter 1, we find Rahab as the mother of Boaz, who is the father of Obed, who is the father of Jesse, who is the father of David, the king of Israel. That Rahab the prostitute ends up in the line of Jesus. I think there's something there. I think there's a lot there. I think that sometimes we go, okay, that person with that reputation and that kind of lifestyle can't possibly contribute. But it shows what love for others and faith in God can do. that she becomes an Israelite. And just a little while later, an Israelite's going to become an outcast for doing exactly the opposite when it comes to Achan and his family. All right? So she makes she does the hiding. She lets them down. They give her a sign. It's a scarlet rope that she'll hang in her window. That whenever when Israel advances and they come in, that whoever's in that house will be spared. Again, if we don't, we hear the echo, right, of the scarlet and whoever's in the house being saved, with the blood of the Lamb over the door and on the lintels in Egypt, that whoever's in that house is spared. And the scarlet cord that says whoever's in there is spared. If they go out, that's on you, right? And that's what they'll tell him. If they go out, if they're not in here, they're out among the city when all this happens, and they die, we didn't know. But if we do it, if we kill them and they're here, then we're guilty, right? They make this agreement, huh? They make this agreement without going back and consulting with Joshua. It doesn't seem that they consult with anybody. They just make the agreement. And we started this by saying this is what they're going to have to navigate is how they're going to live out the covenant in a new time and a new place. I don't know that when they're standing on the other side of the Jordan listening to Moses, if they're thinking, okay, now what happens if we run across a prostitute that saves us? What do we do with her? Right? They have to kind of do this and kind of work through it as they go. And it sounds a little familiar to us, doesn't it? That we have to work through these things as we go. Sometimes the answer seems to be right in front of us, but we have to make decisions day in, day out. Do I do this? Do I not do this? And what better inform that decision is the covenant. Because that's, I think, the importance of going all the way back, of going, don't let this get away from you. Don't turn away from it to either direction. This is what you meditate on day and night, because when that event comes up, then you have a much better chance of making that decision in the right direction. We haven't got to the command yet, right? But whenever they go into Jericho, the thing they're supposed to do is get rid of everything. Except for her. And they say, listen, this is what you've done for us. This is what you're doing for your family. We're going to take care of you. All right. Then the report of the spies, and we'll be almost finished. She let them down through the wall. They departed, went into the hills, and remained there for 3 days until the pursuers returned, and the pursuers searched all along the way and found nothing. Then the two men returned. They came down from the hills, passed over, and came to Joshua the son of Nun, and they told him all that had happened to them. And then they said to Joshua, truly the Lord has given all the land into our hands, and also all the inhabitants of the land melt away because of it. Verse 24, the very first little section there, I think sounds eerily familiar to what Joshua and Caleb said when they came back from Canaan at Kadesh Barnea. That the Lord has given this into our hands, right? They had some more things to say. Yes, the land is plentiful. Yes, there are fortified cities. Yes, there are armed, there are massive armies. There are lots of things happening. But God has given this to us. The other 10 who said, yes, all those things are there, but I don't think God's able. But these two come back and say, listen, not only do we think God's given us this land, but here's why we think. Here's what she told us. That they've heard about us. They've heard about God who is with us. And that all of the things that he has promised are getting ready to come true. I want to finish our last couple of minutes here But just kind of, and I hate to be repetitive, I really do. But I think this is one of those things that gets told over and over and over in Joshua, and particularly in these first two chapters, is that God has made them a promise. Right? God has made them a promise and has given them an offer. It starts all the way back where it says, you've seen what it is that I did to the Egyptians. Right? And now I'm offering you a chance to escape that. I'm offering you a chance to be my people, to be secure, to be blessed. And what you have to do is abide by the terms that I'm going to give you. And if we read through the law, through the book of the covenant in Exodus, we read through Leviticus, we read through Deuteronomy as Moses, tells this law one more time, and it's almost like we're overwhelmed with the amount of things that he's telling them to do. But it really boils down to two things. And Jesus really pulls those out and tells us exactly what they are. That you are to love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength. Anything that you do, right, is to be in service to God, the God who saved you, the God who redeems you. That's how you reciprocate that love. And the second one is you love your neighbor as yourself. And Jesus will go, and all of the law is right there. And again, to repeat myself one more time, it's as simple and as difficult as that. That's what he's asking. And not much has changed in 3,500 years, depending on where you date the Exodus. Right? That God has said, you yourself have seen all the things that have happened. You have all of the eyewitnesses that have told you of the things there. You've seen all of these other things around you. And I'm offering you a chance to escape those things, to be my people. But what that means is that you surrender to the terms I'm offering. Right? That means is that you love me with all of your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength. And you love your neighbor as yourself. Those two commands are incredibly simple, but incredibly difficult whenever we have to go into a new place and a new time and try to figure out how they fit. But as we move to follow God, we move in that direction of loving Him and loving others, and loving Him and loving others. And yes, we are going to get it wrong. But if we could do it all perfectly, then Jesus wouldn't have had to come. Right? But that God's there ready, just like He said before, if you'll return to me, I'll restore you, and we come back again, and we do it all again. Hopefully, my prayer is that's how we start. That's how we start our day, is of going, this is what we're after, to love God and to love others. And then at the end of the day, we go, okay, how do we do? Where do we need to change? What needs to happen tomorrow? As I get up tomorrow morning with those two things in mind of loving God and loving others. To meditate on what it is that He's done and to meditate on the things that He has given us to do. There's plenty to do. But they will all boil down to that. All right? That's all I've got for this morning. I can't promise the rest of them will be this short, but we'll give it a try. Next week, we will take a look at chapters 3 through 5. There's one major section when we get in, as we come on into the book, that's going to get covered. There's about 7 chapters that's going to get covered in 1 week, and that's where they divide up the land. We could read through that and parse out all the little pieces, but the big picture is here's where they all end up. So we're going to do that. But for the rest of it, we'll cover, 2 to 3 chapters pretty much every time we get together and work through this. Let's close with a prayer. Father, we're so thankful for all that you do for us. We're so thankful for what you've left for us to see. We're thankful that we get to gather together and see how you've done and how you've worked through and with your people in the past, some who are incredibly flawed people. But you've been able to change who they were and change them and put them on a different path. And that's what we want, Father, is to be on the path that follows your Son. We're thankful that we can be called your people, and that's really our goal. Help us to look every day to how we can love you, how we can serve you, how we can submit our lives to you, and how we can love others around us and introduce them to you, the God who saves and the God who redeems. Thank you so much for our time together. We ask your continued blessing as we continue to look at the book of Joshua and see the rest of the lessons that we can learn to be more the people that you'd have us to be. We love you so much. In Jesus' name.